Welcome to the Crime Ledger, where every page reveals a mystery.
Before you dive in, write in the comments section where you're watching from right now, and if you are a lover of true crime stories, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the bell icon, so you will never miss the next true crime stories.
The wind tore through the coconut palms like a living beast, howling across the black sky. The island was used to storms. Tropical ones rolled in every season, but this storm was different. It wasn't just wind and rain. It was rage. The kind of storm that rattled shutters loose from windows, sent fishing boats slamming against rocks, and forced even the hardiest islanders to stay huddled inside their huts. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, came a sound no one could mistake. Not the kind the wind makes when it threads through corrugated tin roofs. Not the sound of the sea hammering the shore. This was human. Sharp. Terrified. It cut across the roar of the storm, echoing down the shoreline like a knife against metal. When dawn broke, the storm was gone. The ocean shimmered a mocking blue, as though nothing had happened. The beach stretched out golden and empty. Birds darted between trees. The island looked reborn. But the villagers knew better. Whispers started before breakfast. By the time the sun was high, the whole island had heard, something had happened during the storm. At the far edge of the beach, where jungle roots crawled toward the tide, children found it first, a single red sandal half buried in wet sand. They giggled at first, thinking it was treasure, but their laughter died when one boy noticed the streaks beside it, blood. Thin trails of it, winding into the thick green jungle. The island chief and two fishermen followed the trail with cautious steps. It wasn't long, just a few meters, before it disappeared under trampled leaves, washed out by rain. But there was enough to spark dread. Someone had bled in the storm. Someone had run barefoot into the jungle. By mid-morning, word spread that the missing person was a tourist. A young woman named Emily Carter. Her guesthouse bed had been found empty, sheets damp with rain blown through an open window. Her suitcase was still there, clothes folded neatly. Her passport untouched. Her phone charging on the bedside table, screen frozen on a half-written note, but no Emily. The police chief, a heavy-set man who'd grown tired of tourists bringing problems to his quiet home, shrugged when he was told. Storm night. Probably swept to sea, he said. The ocean takes who it wants. But the villagers shook their heads. They knew storms. They knew drownings. And nobody ran barefoot into the jungle if they were being pulled out by the tide. Besides, the red sandal wasn't found in the water. It was found up the beach. And the blood, it went inland. Still, the official story was simple. Emily Carter had vanished in the storm. Another tourist swallowed by paradise. Case closed. But the island had a way of keeping secrets. And whispers carry further than official statements. That morning, while police half-heartedly scribbled reports, fishermen spoke in low voices at the docks. Bartenders leaned close to travelers at the cafe. Mothers pulled their children inside when clouds rolled again. Because Emily Carter wasn't the first. And she wouldn't be the last. At 27 years old, Emily was the kind of woman who seemed both adventurous and careful. Friends back in Boston described her as the planner, the one who checked maps twice, packed extra batteries, wrote things down. She wasn't reckless. So what was she doing on this forgotten island, thousands of miles from home, at the peak of storm season? The answer, according to her social media, was escape. Her Instagram in the 2 weeks before her disappearance painted a picture of paradise. Shots of golden beaches, papaya breakfasts, hammocks swaying lazily between palm trees. She captioned one photo, finally breathing again. But if you looked closer, really looked, you saw it. In her eyes. In the way her smile didn't quite match the captions. Something was wrong. She hadn't come here just to travel. She was running from something. Her breakup with her fiancé, her friends later revealed, had been brutal. Messy. Public. But there were hints of something darker too, arguments she wouldn't talk about, nights she'd show up at her best friend's apartment shaking. And when she boarded the plane to the island, she told no one until she landed. She just wanted to disappear for a while, her sister recalled later. But not like this. Not forever. Witnesses pieced together her final night like fragments of glass. At 7:45 p.m., she was at the island's only cafe, sipping tea. Her notebook lay open. A waitress remembered her looking over her shoulder again and again, as if expecting someone. At 8:30, she left, stepping into the rain. The cafe owner swore she seemed unsettled. By 9 o'clock, she should have been at her guest house. She never arrived. Instead, a fisherman claimed he saw her running along the shoreline barefoot, soaked by rain, clutching something to her chest. He swore there was a man following, a shadow barely visible in the downpour. The police dismissed his account. Too much rum, they said. Storms make shadows look like monsters. But the fisherman never changed his story. And the next morning, when the storm cleared, Emily was gone. In her room, investigators found her journal. Pages filled with looping handwriting, dreams, thoughts, heartbreak, poems. But the last page stopped them cold. Scrawled hastily, with uneven lines as if written in panic, were 4 words. Someone is watching me. The ink was smudged by water. But the message was clear. And yet, the handwriting, it didn't quite match the rest of her journal. Locals muttered about the curse of the jungle. But when journalists began digging, they found something darker. Emily's disappearance wasn't the first. Over the last decade, other women had vanished on this same island. A French backpacker in 2015. A German student in 2017. A Canadian honeymooner in 2019. All young. All between 20 and 30. All last seen near the jungle. The police called it coincidence, bad weather, strong tides, tourists who wander. But the villagers weren't convinced. And now, with Emily gone, they started talking again. Quietly. Fearfully. Because no one believed the storm had taken her. Someone had. As the sun set that day, painting the sea blood red, tourists huddled inside their hostels. Locals bolted doors. The beach lay empty, the red sandal gone, bagged as evidence that would lead nowhere. And the jungle, vast and dark, whispered with unseen life. Emily Carter was missing. The police were useless. The villagers were terrified. And the question hung heavy in the humid air. What really happened to Emily Carter that night? Because one thing was certain. She didn't just disappear. The case should have ended there, another unsolved island tragedy. But as investigators reviewed her journal one more time, their blood ran cold. The final words, "Someone is watching me," weren't written by Emily at all. The rain was already falling in heavy sheets when Emily Carter left the cafe that night. Witnesses remembered the scene vividly, because on an island that small, everything stood out. A tourist, alone, stepping out into a storm with no umbrella, no shoes, and an anxious look in her eyes, that wasn't something people forgot. The cafe owner, a wiry man named Hector, would later tell reporters that Emily lingered for almost 2 hours that evening. She ordered tea, then another. She picked at a slice of banana bread without finishing it. Most tourists spent their nights drinking rum cocktails or dancing by the beach bonfire. But Emily sat hunched at her table, notebook open, pen scratching furiously across the page. She was tense, Hector said. Kept looking at the door. Kept checking the window. Not like a tourist. Like someone waiting for bad news. At one point, she asked if there was a phone she could use. The island had poor service, and the Wi-Fi at the cafe had gone out in the storm. Hector told her no. He swore he saw her lips tighten, like she wanted to cry, but then she forced a smile. She paid her bill in cash, tucked the notebook under her arm, and stepped into the storm. That was 8:45 p.m. By 9 o'clock, she should have been back at her guest house. The walk was only 10 minutes along the shoreline road. But she never arrived. Hours later, soaked to the bone and clutching his net, a fisherman named Raoul swore he saw something strange. He was returning from the far side of the cove when he spotted movement on the beach. Through the rain, he made out a figure, a woman, barefoot, sprinting through the sand, hair plastered to her face. She clutched what looked like a book to her chest. And behind her, another figure. Taller. Dark. Moving fast. Raoul froze. The storm howled so loud he could barely hear, but he swore, he caught the sound of a scream carried on the wind. The next morning, when word spread that a tourist was missing, he told the police what he saw. They laughed in his face. Too much rum, they said. Storm shadows. But Raoul hadn't been drinking. And he never changed his story. She was running, he told reporters later, running from someone. The police search turned up more questions than answers. Emily's room was neat, almost too neat. Her passport was still in the drawer. Her wallet was untouched. Her clothes folded, her phone charging, screen frozen on a note she never finished typing. If something happens to me. The rest was blank. But the strangest thing was her journal. Most of it was filled with Emily's careful handwriting, loops and swirls, poetic notes about sunsets, fragments of memories. But the last page was different. The letters jagged. Uneven. Written in haste. Someone is watching me. Her sister, when shown a copy, swore it wasn't Emily's writing. Handwriting experts later agreed. Which begged the question, if Emily didn't write it, who did? The police chief gave a statement, Emily had drowned. Swept out by the tide during the storm. No foul play suspected. Case closed. But the evidence screamed otherwise. Why were her belongings still in her room? Why would she run barefoot into the rain, leaving her shoes under the bed? Why was her journal marked with writing that wasn't hers? And why, above all, was there blood in the sand leading into the jungle? The contradictions were too sharp, too glaring, for the island's residents to ignore. Tourists started whispering among themselves, huddled inside hostels. Some packed their bags and left on the next ferry. Others grew curious, drawn to the mystery like moths to flame. But the locals? They were silent. Terrified. Because for them, this wasn't new. In hushed tones, older islanders began to share stories. 2015, a French backpacker named Claire went missing after a storm. Her belongings were found untouched in her hostel. 2017, a German student named Anika disappeared walking back from the bar. 2019, a Canadian honeymooner vanished, leaving her husband frantic and broken. Different years, different storms, always the same pattern. The police denied it, coincidences, they insisted, accidents. But the locals knew the jungle took them, or rather, something inside the jungle. And now Emily. Investigators returned to the cafe where Emily had last been seen. Hector, the owner, handed over the slip of paper she had left under her teacup. On it were 4 words, scrawled in a rush. Table by the window. No one knew what it meant. A meeting? A warning? A note to herself? But one waitress remembered something else. She swore she saw a man sitting 2 tables behind Emily that night. Watching her. She described him as lean, with sharp features, wearing a fisherman's raincoat. When she looked again, he was gone. By the end of the week, the case had exploded beyond the island. Emily's family flew in, desperate for answers. Journalists crowded the docks. Headlines screamed, American tourist vanishes in island storm. The police were forced to act. They dragged the shoreline, sent dogs into the jungle, and interrogated locals. But nothing turned up. No body. No trail. Nothing but the red sandal, the unfinished phone note, and the journal with handwriting that didn't belong. The family begged for FBI involvement. The island resisted. They didn't want the world to know its secret. But the world already did. And with attention came pressure. When Emily's phone was examined, investigators found something chilling. The night she vanished, several photos had been taken between 8:30 and 8:45 p.m. Blurry. Dark. Rain-smeared. Most showed nothing, just water streaks and faint outlines. But one photo stood out. It was taken from her guesthouse window. The reflection in the glass showed Emily's face, pale, hair wet. And behind her, faint but unmistakable, was the silhouette of a man standing in the shadows, a man inside her room. The investigation was collapsing under its own contradictions. Emily was last seen at the cafe at 8:45, by 9 o'clock, she was supposedly running along the shoreline but at the same time, her phone took photos inside her guesthouse. Was she in two places at once? Or had someone else used her phone? The police shrugged. Called it inconclusive. Blamed the storm. But to Emily's sister, who clutched that phone like it was her only lifeline, there was no mistake. She wasn't alone in that room, she said. He was there. Whoever he is. The locals had a name for him, they called him El Vigilante, the Watcher. No one knew where the name came from. Some said it dated back decades. Others said it was just a story told to scare tourists, but after Emily's disappearance, the name returned with venom. Whispers filled the air, the Watcher took her. The Watcher lives in the jungle. The Watcher waits for storms. It sounded like legend. Folklore. But legends often grow from truth. And if there was truth to this one, it meant the island had a predator. One who had been hunting for years. The case files should have gathered dust like the others. But 1 week after Emily vanished, a guest at the same hostel claimed she woke to a sound outside her window. When she peered through the curtain, lightning illuminated the jungle edge. And there, just for a split second, she saw him. A man, tall, gaunt, pale eyes glinting in the dark. The search for Emily Carter stretched into its second week, and the island was beginning to unravel. Tourists were frightened. Some cut their vacations short, abandoning prepaid rooms to catch the ferry. Local business owners cursed under their breath. What good was paradise if it was haunted by the specter of a missing American girl? But in the jungle, away from the beaches and rum shacks, something waited. Something that would take the case from tragedy to horror. It started with a whisper, as these things often do. A boy, no more than 12, claimed he had followed his uncle into the jungle to hunt wild pigs. Deep in the trees, they stumbled across a shack, lean, wooden, sagging with moss. The uncle brushed it off as one of the many abandoned fishermen huts scattered across the island. But the boy swore he saw something inside, a box. A big, old box. And things, women's things. At first, no one believed him. Children tell stories, especially in the wake of fear. But when the boy repeated the tale again and again, his father finally reported it to the police. The officers laughed, until the American press caught wind. Under the glare of cameras, they had no choice but to investigate. The trek to the shack was brutal. Mud clung to boots, vines clawed at legs, insects swarmed in clouds. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The jungle swallowed sound. Finally, there it was. The shack leaned like a drunk against a banyan tree, its planks warped and blackened by rain. The air around it felt different, stale, heavy. Inside, it was dark. Dust motes swirled in weak shafts of light cutting through holes in the roof. The smell hit first, mold, salt, and something metallic. In the corner sat a trunk. Rusted, dented, ch. When officers pried it open, what they found silenced the jungle. Inside the trunk lay objects, ordinary things, yet deeply wrong in this place. A silver heart-shaped locket, chain broken, a photograph torn down the middle, showing a smiling young woman, a bundle of faded postcards, a bright red hair tie, frayed at the edges and at the bottom, coated in dust, a red sandal, Emily's sandal. The same one found half buried on the beach, but here it was again. Which meant one thing: someone had taken it from the evidence bag, or worse, there had been two sandals all along. The shack belonged to a fisherman named Jonas Hale. Locals knew him well. A recluse, mid-40s, with a face weathered like driftwood. He lived mostly off the sea, selling fish when he felt like it, trading favors when he didn't. Jonas denied everything. "Those things wash ashore," he insisted. "The sea brings me treasures." But the police weren't convinced. Why would a fisherman keep women's jewelry, photographs, shoes? Why lock them in a trunk in the jungle? They hauled Jonas into the station. Cameras flashed. Reporters called him the collector. But without bodies, without proof of violence, they had nothing. Jonas walked free. And the island trembled. Meanwhile, Emily's journal was re-examined. Handwriting experts compared the last entry, "Someone is watching me," to Jonas's own script. The curves of the letters. The slant. The pressure. It was close. Too close. But not exact. Which led to a terrifying possibility. Jonas might not be the only one. Old court records revealed something chilling: Jonas had a younger brother, Samuel. Years earlier, Samuel had been accused of assaulting a tourist. The case never went to trial. He disappeared before charges were filed. Some believed Samuel fled the island. Others whispered he never left, that he had simply moved into the jungle, a ghost among the trees. If true, the theory explained everything. Jonas, the collector, the hoarder of trophies. Samuel, the predator, Together, they formed a pair of shadows that stalked the island, but no one could prove it. Public pressure mounted. The U.S. Embassy demanded action. Emily's family begged for answers. But the local police grew defensive, hostile. Evidence went missing. The locket from the trunk vanished before it could be tested. Witness statements were altered. One officer was caught meeting secretly with Jonas at a bar. The case collapsed. By the end of the month, the official story was the same as before: Emily Carter had drowned in the storm. But the people knew better. They had seen the trunk. The trophies. The lies. And still, no one could answer the one question that mattered. Where was Emily? One man refused to let it die. His name was Daniel Moore, a British journalist who had covered disappearances across Southeast Asia. He arrived on the island weeks after Emily vanished and began poking around. Daniel interviewed locals, pieced together timelines, mapped disappearances. The pattern was undeniable: every 2 years, during storm season, a young woman vanished. He followed trails into the jungle, bribed fishermen for stories, even confronted Jonas himself. "Why keep the trunk?" Daniel asked. Jonas stared at him with pale eyes. "The sea gives. The sea takes." It wasn't an answer. But it was enough to send shivers down Daniel's spine. Daniel's breakthrough came when he obtained a copy of the torn photograph from the trunk. He tracked down the other half, hidden in the belongings of the German student who had vanished in 2017. Matched together, the photo showed the student smiling at a beach bar. Behind her, blurry but clear enough, was Jonas Hale. He had been there. With her. Before she vanished. But still, no arrest came. As Daniel's reporting spread, the island became infamous. Tourists arrived not for the beaches, but for the thrill of the haunted mystery. They asked locals to point out the Watcher's Jungle. The locals hated it. Because to them, it wasn't a ghost story. It was real. And the whispers grew louder: "He's still out there." Months passed. Emily was gone, her family forced to return home empty-handed. Jonas lived free, fishing by day, vanishing into the jungle by night. Then, one evening, a hiker stumbled across something buried beneath roots in the jungle. A bone. And beside it, tangled in the dirt, a necklace with a silver heart. The same necklace from the trunk. Except now, it was wrapped around a human skull. The jungle grave changed everything. Until then, Emily Carter's disappearance had been treated as a tragic mystery, one of those unsolved tourist tragedies that newspapers write about for a week before moving on. But when hikers stumbled upon a shallow grave, the case stopped being speculation. It became proof. It was a group of 3 hikers, tourists from Australia, who found it. They were cutting across a rarely used trail when one of them tripped over what he thought was a root. Only it wasn't. It was bone. Human bone. The soil was shallow, hurriedly shoveled back into place. The grave had been dug beneath a massive tree, its roots twisting over the disturbed earth like the fingers of a giant hand trying to hold the secret down. When investigators arrived, they unearthed a grisly sight, a partial skeleton, fragile and broken, the skull resting at an unnatural angle. But what truly froze them wasn't the bones, it was the necklace. A silver heart-shaped pendant tangled around the neck, corroded but recognizable. The very same pendant that had once been locked in Jonas Hale's trunk. Only now, it was wrapped around a corpse. Dental records confirmed what many had feared, the remains belonged to Annika Schaefer, a 22-year-old German exchange student who had vanished in 2017. Her disappearance had barely made international news at the time. Just another reckless tourist gone missing, the headlines had read. Her family begged for answers, but the case withered. And now, here she was, buried like trash in the jungle. The discovery reignited every question, every accusation, every whisper. If Annika had been here all along, what about the others? Where was the French backpacker? The Canadian honeymooner? Emily Carter? Near the grave, investigators also found a camera. Water damaged, its casing cracked, lens shattered. At first, they thought it useless. But the memory card inside still worked. The photos on it were disturbing. Annika, alive, bound, her face streaked with dirt and tears. Her eyes staring directly into the lens. And behind her, barely visible in the background, was a figure. A man. The outline of his jaw. The curve of his brow. The shadow of his nose. Jonas Hale, the island erupted. How could Jonas still walk free? The trunk. The sandal. Now a corpse linked directly to him. What more did they need? But Jonas denied everything. He claimed he'd never seen the camera, never buried anyone. People want to blame me because I live alone, he said. Because I don't smile for the tourists. Legally, the evidence was circumstantial. The photo was blurry. The necklace could have been planted. Jonas slipped through their fingers again. Journalist Daniel Moore seized on the discovery. He published a scathing piece titled, "The Island Collector, a Predator Hidden in Paradise." In it, he laid out the timeline. 2015, Claire Dubois, 24, French backpacker. Disappeared after a storm. Never found, 2017, Annika Schaefer, 22, German student. Remains discovered in 2024, 2019, Sophie Miller, 29, Canadian honeymooner. Vanished during a night swim. Body never recovered, 2021, no disappearance reported, though several locals whispered about a girl who came and left quickly, 2023, Emily Carter, 27, American traveler. Missing. No body. Every 2 years. Storm season. A young woman gone, the pattern was undeniable. And it meant something else, something chilling. If the cycle held, another victim should have appeared in 2021. Which meant the graveyard might hold more than just Annika. With international cameras on the island, the locals finally began to speak openly. They told stories of seeing Jonas wandering the jungle at night, carrying bundles. They recalled his brother Samuel, who vanished years earlier after being accused of assaulting a tourist. One fisherman admitted that both brothers used to take long trips together into the interior, hunting. He never knew for what. But the most terrifying story came from an old woman who lived near the jungle edge. She swore she had seen both brothers years ago dragging something into the trees during a storm. Something that looked like a body. The more Daniel Moore published, the more the island's authorities scrambled. Tourism was collapsing. Hotels sat empty. Ferries carried more people off the island than on. But behind the scenes, a darker truth emerged. Officials had known for years. Police reports of missing tourists had been buried. Evidence misplaced. Families pressured into silence. Money had changed hands, hotel owners desperate to keep their paradise spotless, officials eager to protect their pockets. Emily Carter's case had forced it all into the light. And yet, still no justice came. By late 2024, the families of the missing banded together. The Carters, the Schaeffers, the Millers. They formed a coalition demanding international action. They held vigils, marched in capitals, appeared on talk shows. The haunting photo of Anika staring into the camera became the face of their campaign. Find them all, the slogan read. But each new headline only deepened the island's paranoia. Because if Jonas wasn't locked away, if Samuel was still out there, who would vanish next? By now, the myth of the Watcher had bled beyond the island. Tourists whispered his name on ferries, journalists printed it in bold headlines. The Watcher. Some described him as gaunt, with pale eyes that glowed in moonlight. Others said he was faceless, a shadow in the trees. But those who had lived on the island longest spoke. He's real, they said. We've seen him. And they insisted he wasn't gone. That when the storms came, he would hunt again. As investigators mapped the disappearances, they noticed something strange. Every victim had been last seen near the same stretch of jungle trail. A narrow path leading toward an abandoned well. Satellite images revealed disturbed earth in several spots near the well, shallow depressions too regular to be natural. When teams began to dig, they unearthed fragments. Bones. Clothing. A bracelet. But the digs were halted by officials who claimed it was too disruptive. The families erupted in fury. Daniel Moore accused the authorities of covering up a serial killer's dumping ground. The island tried to silence him. He received threats. Anonymous notes slid under his hotel door, leave before the storm. He didn't. One night, while reviewing his notes, Daniel returned to his room to find the door ajar. Inside, nothing was stolen. Nothing disturbed. Except for one thing. On his pillow lay a single item. A torn page from Emily Carter's journal. And scrawled across it in jagged writing were 3 words. You're next, Daniel. Daniel Moore didn't sleep the night he found that page on his pillow. He sat upright in his hotel bed, heart racing, the words, "You're next, Daniel," burned into his mind. The handwriting was jagged, uneven, the same strange style that had appeared in Emily Carter's journal, the one experts claimed wasn't hers. Who had been inside his room? How had they slipped in without being seen? And, most terrifying of all, how many people were involved? Because Daniel was beginning to realize something horrifying. This wasn't just about Jonas Hale. By now, international attention had turned the island into a powder keg. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, everyone wanted a piece of the story. Emily Carter's face appeared nightly on primetime broadcasts. The German student Anika's haunting photo, alive, bound, staring at the camera, was plastered acros. Under that kind of pressure, the island police scrambled to keep control. But instead of bringing clarity, the investigation fractured completely. Some officers pushed to arrest Jonas immediately, others insisted on protecting tourism, arguing the case would destroy livelihoods. Evidence continued to vanish. Items from the shack trunk, including the postcards and the hair tie, simply disappeared from storage. Witnesses changed their testimonies, some claiming they'd been threatened, others bribed. It became clear the rot went deep, and Daniel, scribbling furiously in his notebook, began to suspect the unthinkable. The predator had help within the police. The idea of Jonas acting alone was shaky at best. He was a fisherman, solitary, quiet. Capable of violence, yes, but the precision of the pattern? The repeated storm season vanishings? It felt orchestrated. That's when the forgotten names surfaced again: Samuel Hale, Jonas's younger brother. The more Daniel dug, the more Samuel's ghost haunted the case. Arrest records showed Samuel had once been accused of assaulting a tourist in 2009. The case collapsed after the victim abruptly left the island. Samuel was never tried. Then he disappeared. Some said he left on a fishing boat. Others whispered he had gone into the jungle, preferring the company of shadows to prison. But villagers swore they'd seen him, years later, lurking near the trail that led to the old well. A gaunt man, pale-eyed, with a grin that made stomachs twist. If Samuel was alive, and still on the island, then the Hale brothers weren't just a family. They were a hunting pair. One stalked. The other collected. Together, they left a trail of ghosts. By late 2024, under pressure from the Carter family, the FBI formally joined the investigation. Agents flew in, clashing immediately with the local police. The FBI demanded full access to the shack, the grave site, and evidence logs. What they found horrified them. The trunk was gone. Jonas had moved it before the second raid. The site of Anika's grave had been burned over with brushfires. By accident, the evidence locker was half empty. Someone on the inside was sabotaging the case. One FBI agent described it bluntly: "It's like investigating with your hands tied while someone erases footprints ahead of you." With pressure mounting, Jonas was brought in again. Cameras swarmed the station. For hours, agents grilled him, but Jonas was calm. Too calm. "The sea takes people," he said. "The storms take them. Why blame me?" When pressed about the shack, he smirked. "The jungle keeps what it wants." And then, with no body directly tied to him, no forensic evidence left intact, Jonas walked free. The island erupted in fury. Tourists panicked. Families screamed into microphones. The Carters demanded Jonas's immediate arrest. But Jonas had melted back into the jungle before sundown. For Daniel Moore, the case was no longer just a story. It was an obsession. He traced every storm season disappearance, marking red pins on a map. Every one clustered around the same stretch of jungle, the path to the old well. He began to walk it himself, day after day, boots sinking into mud, notebook in hand. He felt watched. Sometimes he swore he heard footsteps behind him. Other times, he caught flashes of movement in the trees. One night, while recording notes by flashlight, Daniel's camera caught something chilling, a pale face glinting for half a second between leaves. When he spun around, there was nothing. The watcher, he was real. Back in the US, Emily's parents sat for interviews, voices trembling. "We know she didn't just vanish," her mother said. "We know someone took her." The Schaefers in Germany demanded justice for Anika. The Millers in Canada begged for answers about Sophie. But with every plea, the island grew colder. Officials stonewalled, claiming there was no proof of foul play. Hotels launched campaigns insisting the island was safe. Travel agencies scrubbed news articles. It was betrayal. A cover-up to protect profit over truth. The families knew it. Daniel knew it. The FBI knew it. But still, nothing. Daniel began receiving more than just anonymous notes. His hotel room was broken into twice. His tires slashed. A dead fish left on his doorstep with a crude message carved into its scales, "Go home." But he didn't. He couldn't. He believed Emily's body was still out there. That somewhere, beneath the tangle of roots and vines, the jungle held her. And if he left, the truth would never come out. While digging through records, Daniel found something odd. Each disappearance 2 years apart. But what about 2021? At first, there was no record. No missing tourist. No police file. Nothing. Until Daniel found a half-buried report in the embassy logs, a young woman from Brazil, 25 years old, who vanished while backpacking across the region. Her disappearance was never tied to the island because her passport was never stamped at the dock. But Daniel traced her last known location, a ferry ticket. Destination, the island. The missing year wasn't missing at all. It had just been erased. Daniel's reporting hit international headlines. Island cover-up, serial predator protected by officials. Tourism collapsed. Flights were cancelled. The island's name became synonymous with fear. But inside the island, a different reality took hold. Some locals whispered that the Hales weren't men anymore, they were spirits, half jungle, half human. Hunters who had lived in the shadows so long they'd become myths. Others believed they were still flesh and blood. Just protected. Shielded by officials, maybe even by powerful outsiders. Whatever the truth, one fact remained: women were vanishing, and no one was stopping it. Late one night, Daniel received a call from an anonymous number. The voice was low, urgent, terrified. "I know where she is," the caller whispered. "I know where Emily is." Daniel's heart slammed in his chest. "Where?" Silence. Then. "Meet me. The old well. Midnight." The line went dead. And Daniel knew, if he went, he might find the truth. Or he might never come back. Daniel Moore stared at the phone long after the line went dead. "Meet me. The old well. Midnight." Every instinct told him it was a trap. The note on his pillow. The dead fish left at his door. The faces he felt in the jungle watching him. But if there was even a chance that the anonymous voice knew where Emily Carter was, he had no choice. The jungle was a different world at night. The air thick and wet, every sound amplified. Frogs croaked like alarms. Branches creaked under unseen weight. His flashlight beam cut a narrow path of white through the endless black. The old well was half an hour inland, down the same cursed trail that had appeared in every one of Daniel's timelines. The same trail where the Hale brothers were whispered to prowl. Each step sank into mud. Each shadow seemed to move. By the time he reached the clearing, his shirt clung to him with sweat. The well stood crooked, stones cracked, vines draped over its rim like skeletal fingers. And waiting there was a man. He was small, wiry, eyes darting like a cornered animal. He gave no name, no backstory. Just whispered words. "I worked with them," he said. His voice cracked. "With Jonas. With Samuel. I carried things. Heavy things. Into the jungle. I didn't ask." Daniel's chest tightened. "Bodies?" The man flinched. Then nodded. "Where?" Daniel demanded. The man glanced at the well. "Down there. And not just her. Others. All of them." Before Daniel could ask more, the man shoved something into his hand, a flash drive wrapped in cloth. "Photos," he hissed. "Proof." Then he bolted into the jungle, swallowed by shadows before Daniel could even call after him. Daniel leaned over the well. His flashlight beam pierced the darkness. At first, he saw nothing but moss and water. Then, shapes. Bones. Dozens of them, tangled together like driftwood. A graveyard at the bottom of the well. His stomach turned. He snapped photo after photo, his hands shaking. The watcher wasn't a ghost. He was real. And this was his dumping ground. Back in his hotel, Daniel plugged the flash drive into his laptop. Dozens of folders appeared. Inside, photographs. Women, alive, bound. Faces streaked with tears. The jungle, blurred in the background. Close-ups of jewelry, shoes, strands of hair. And finally, bodies. Daniel's hands trembled as he clicked through, bile rising in his throat. But the last photo stopped him cold. It was of Emily Carter. Alive. Eyes wide. Her mouth gagged. Her wrists bound. Behind her, in the shadows, stood a man. Jonas Hale. The photos exploded across international media. Daniel released them through his paper in London, ensuring they couldn't be buried. The headlines were brutal. Island predator exposed, serial killer protected for years. The well of bones, missing tourists dumped in jungle. Final photo of Emily Carter, alive before she vanished. Emily's parents wept on camera. She was alive, her father said, voice breaking. They had her. They could have saved her. The Schaeffers in Germany demanded Jonas's arrest. The Millers in Canada flew to the island to beg for answers. Pressure mounted. But once again, Jonas slipped through. When police stormed his shack, it was empty. Clothes gone. Nets cut loose. The jungle behind the hut trampled by fresh footprints. Jonas had vanished. Some believed he fled by boat under cover of darkness. Others swore he simply melted into the jungle, guided by trails only he and Samuel knew. Interpol issued a warrant. Posters with his face appeared worldwide. But the island's silence grew heavier. Because deep down, everyone knew, Jonas had never planned to leave. With Jonas gone, whispers of Samuel returned stronger than ever. Who had taken the photos if Jonas was in them? Who had written in Emily's journal if Jonas's handwriting didn't match? The answer was obvious. Two brothers. Two predators. One behind the camera. One in front. Together, they had built a nightmare. The more Daniel published, the more dangerous life became. His email flooded with death threats. His hotel reported strange men asking for his room number. One night, he woke to find his balcony door ajar, muddy footprints on the tiles. The FBI urged him to leave. "You've done your part," they said. But Daniel couldn't. Not while Emily's body, and the bodies of so many others, remained missing. He was determined to uncover the well's full depth. To count the bones. To bring every victim home. The island itself split in two. Some locals begged for justice, guiding investigators, sharing stories of nights when they heard screams carried on the wind. Others closed their doors, insisting nothing was wrong. Some even defended Jonas, calling him a scapegoat. Tourists get drunk. They drown, one bar owner said. Blame the sea, not us. But the truth was unavoidable, the well existed. The photos were real. And the island was cursed. Among the flash drive photos was one final, chilling clue. It showed a clearing, moonlit, with a crude wooden cross planted in the soil. Beside it, half buried, was a blanket. Emily's blanket. The metadata timestamp was just 3 days after her disappearance. The cross was still out there. Somewhere in the jungle. And if they could find it, maybe they could find her. Armed with the photos, Daniel returned to the trail the next morning. He followed the path, deeper than before, searching for the clearing. Hours passed. His camera battery died. His throat burned with thirst. And then, through the trees, he saw it. The wooden cross. Half buried beneath vines. And just as he stepped toward it, a branch snapped behind him. Daniel spun. And there, half hidden in the shadows, stood a man. Tall. Gaunt. Pale eyes gleaming. Watching. Who had written in Emily's journal if Jonas's handwriting didn't match? The answer was obvious. 2 brothers. 2 predators. One behind the camera. One in front. Together, they had built a nightmare. The more Daniel published, the more dangerous life became. His email flooded with death threats. His hotel reported strange men asking for his room number. One night, he woke to find his balcony door ajar, muddy footprints on the tiles. The FBI urged him to leave. "You've done your part," they said. But Daniel couldn't. Not while Emily's body, and the bodies of so many others, remained missing. He was determined to uncover the well's full depth. To count the bones. To bring every victim home. The island itself split in 2. Some locals begged for justice, guiding investigators, sharing stories of nights when they heard screams carried on the wind. Others closed their doors, insisting nothing was wrong. Some even defended Jonas, calling him a scapegoat. Tourists get drunk. They drown, one bar owner said. Blame the sea, not us. But the truth was unavoidable, the well existed. The photos were real. And the island was cursed. Among the flash drive photos was one final, chilling clue. It showed a clearing, moonlit, with a crude wooden cross planted in the soil. Beside it, half buried, was a blanket. Emily's blanket. The metadata timestamp was just 3 days after her disappearance. The cross was still out there. Somewhere in the jungle. And if they could find it, maybe they could find her. Armed with the photos, Daniel returned to the trail the next morning. He followed the path, deeper than before, searching for the clearing. Hours passed. His camera battery died. His throat burned with thirst. And then, through the trees, he saw it. The wooden cross. Half buried beneath vines. And just as he stepped toward it, a branch snapped behind him. Daniel spun. And there, half hidden in the shadows, stood a man. Tall. Gaunt. Pale eyes gleaming. Watching. Daniel photographed everything, each click of the shutter feeling like borrowed time. Every second he lingered, he imagined pale eyes watching from the canopy. Back in town, Daniel showed the FBI his photos. They didn't just see bones and blankets. They saw something else. Hidden in the vines, half buried, was a small black box. A trail camera. The Hale brothers had been documenting their hunts. Agents stormed the clearing the next morning, recovering the camera. Its SD card was damp but intact. When the files were finally pulled, what they saw froze them to their seats. Hundreds of images. Women tied to trees. Women gagged. Women forced to kneel by the well. And then, one image that would sear itself into every mind that saw it. Emily Carter, alive, staring directly into the lens. Her eyes wide, lips cracked, expression both terrified and defiant. And standing behind her, smirking into the camera, was Jonas Hale. The image went viral within hours. News anchors wept on air. Hashtags trended worldwide, hashtag justice for Emily, hashtag the watcher, hashtag island of secrets. The Carter family collapsed under the weight of it. Emily's mother clutched the photo during interviews, sobbing, "This was after we begged them to search. After they told us she drowned. She was alive." The FBI demanded Jonas's immediate arrest. Interpol issued a red notice. For the first time, even the island authorities couldn't deny the truth. But Jonas had vanished. 3 days after the clearing raid, fishermen reported seeing a figure at dawn, rowing a small boat into the horizon. They swore it was Jonas. His face hidden under a hood. His arms pulling the oars with terrifying strength. The boat carried no nets, no supplies. Only a bundle wrapped in cloth. When the fishermen tried to follow, a storm swept in, waves rising like walls. By the time it cleared, the boat was gone. Some believe he drowned. Others insist he reached another island, slipping into obscurity. But most believe he never left at all. That he abandoned, doubled back, and returned to the jungle where no law could touch him. Even as Jonas became the world's most wanted fisherman, the specter of Samuel lingered. The trail camera images revealed something chilling. In several frames, Emily was photographed from 2 different angles at once. 2 cameras. Which meant 2 hunters. Jonas in one shot. Another unseen man in the other. Handwriting analysis confirmed it again, the jagged script in Emily's journal wasn't Jonas's. It was Samuel's. Together, they had stalked her. And together, they had vanished into myth. Tourism collapsed completely. Flights cancelled. Resorts shuttered. Streets once alive with music and laughter now echoed with silence. For locals, it was more than lost money. It was fear. Parents forbade daughters from walking alone. Men avoided the jungle entirely. And in the silence, legends grew. Some claimed to hear women's screams during storms. Others swore they saw pale eyes glowing at night near the well. The watcher had become less man than monster. Daniel Moore sat at his laptop, staring at the last image of Emily Carter. Her eyes haunted him. Alive. Pleading. Forever frozen in time. He had risked everything, his career, his safety, to uncover the truth. And yet, the one thing her family begged for, her body, remained lost. Guilt consumed him. He replayed the moment in the clearing when he had seen the pale-eyed man. If he had chased him. If he had fought. If he had risked it all right then, could he have saved her? Or would he simply be another set of bones at the bottom of the well? Months passed. Jonas was never captured. Samuel was never found. But the pattern loomed like a storm cloud. 2015, 2017. 2019, 2021. 2023. Which meant 2025. The cycle would demand another. And whispers began anew, that during the next storm, when the jungle was darkest and the waves loudest, the brothers would strike again. The families begged governments to blockade the island. The FBI insisted patrols would prevent another. But the locals shook their heads. The watcher doesn't need permission, they said. The storm is his cloak. One evening, nearly a year after Emily vanished, Daniel received a package at his London flat. No return address. Inside was a camera memory card. When he slid it into his laptop, one file appeared. A single photo. Taken weeks earlier. It showed a young woman, bound, her eyes wide in terror. And scrawled across the bottom, in jagged handwriting that Daniel now knew too well, were 3 words. She is next. The photo on the memory card was burned into Daniel Moore's eyes long after he shut his laptop. A young woman, bound, gagged, her hair falling across her face. Alive. Terrified. And scrawled across the bottom in jagged black letters. She is next. The handwriting was identical to the final line in Emily Carter's journal. The line experts swore wasn't hers. The line Samuel Hale had written. For years, skeptics had clung to denial. They said Emily drowned. They said the graves were coincidence. They said Jonas was just a scapegoat. But the memory card erased all doubt. The brothers were still out there. Still hunting. Interpol opened a new file. Governments scrambled. Headlines screamed across the globe. The Watcher returns. But amid the chaos, one truth cut deeper than the rest: if the cycle held, the Hale brothers would not stop. And now, 2025. For the families of the missing, the revelation was agony. The Carters clung to Emily's final photo, the one from the jungle camera, her eyes defiant despite the gag. She was alive, her father repeated endlessly. She fought. She was still there. The Schaefers buried what little was recovered of Annika, but her mother confessed during a German TV interview, "I still dream she will walk through the door. Because if she lived for days, maybe she could have lived longer. Maybe she still is." The Millers returned to Canada empty-handed, Sophie's absence an open wound. Her husband drank himself into silence. Every family carried the same weight, the torment of not knowing. The bodies not found. The graves unmarked. The jungle had swallowed their daughters, and without closure, the grief never ended. By 2025, the island was a ghost of itself. Hotels sat empty. Beaches littered with broken chairs. The once bustling market reduced to a handful of stalls. The ferries still ran, but fewer tourists came with each passing month. Those who stayed did not come for paradise. They came for darkness. Thrill seekers, amateur ghost hunters, influencers chasing likes. They walked the jungle trails with cameras, daring to whisper the name The Watcher. The locals despised them. For islanders, it was no myth. It was real. Too real. Parents still warned their daughters not to wander at night. Fishermen still swore they saw pale eyes in the treeline during storms. And whenever thunder rolled across the horizon, doors bolted shut. Because everyone knew, the storm was his cloak. Daniel Moore became both hero and outcast. To the families, he was the man who exposed the truth. To the island, he was the outsider who had cursed them, dragging their darkest secret into the light. But inside himself, Daniel was broken. The memory card had reignited his obsession. Who was the girl in the photo? Where had it been taken? Could she still be saved? Night after night, he studied the metadata, the shadows, the foliage. The angle of the moon. The bark of the tree behind her. It all pointed back to the same cursed stretch of jungle. The well. The trail. The clearing. But when Daniel begged to return, the FBI warned him, "You've already risked enough. You won't come back next time." He didn't listen. In March 2025, Daniel joined a small group of volunteers to sweep the jungle one last time. Locals guided them, FBI agents trailed behind, wary of another ambush. They found nothing for hours. Just vines, mud, endless roots. And then, they stumbled into a new clearing. The ground was disturbed. Fresh earth. Flies swarmed thick. They dug. And within minutes, uncovered bones. Too many to count. A ribcage tangled with a femur that didn't match. A skull with hair still clinging to it. It was not a grave. It was a pit. The smell was unbearable. The horror, unspeakable. The jungle wasn't just hiding a killer. It was a graveyard. Forensic teams recovered fragments of at least 7 women from that pit. Rings, bracelets, teeth, all that remained of lives stolen. But none were Emily. Her body was still missing. Her fate still unanswered. And that unanswered question tore the world apart. Was she buried deeper in the jungle? Was she hidden somewhere no one had thought to look? Or, most chilling of all, had she been taken off the island alive? Jonas Hale was never caught. No verified sighting. No arrest. Samuel Hale was never confirmed alive. Only whispers. Only jagged writing. Only shadows caught at the corner of vision. Some believed they drowned. Others believed they fled. But the locals knew better. "They're still here," one fisherman told a documentary crew. "The jungle protects them. You'll never find them unless they want you to." The year stretched on. 2025 ticked forward. Storm season neared. And with it, fear spread across the island like smoke. Mothers clutched their daughters tighter. Tourists fled. Even Daniel, hardened by years of chasing shadows, admitted to colleagues. If the pattern holds, someone else is already marked. On the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, Daniel recorded one final segment. His face drawn, eyes haunted, he looked straight into the camera. "We may never find them," he said. "We may never know the full truth. But what I do know is this: someone hunted these women. Someone buried them in the jungle. Someone left their families shattered. And until he is caught, until they are caught, no one is safe. Not on this island. Not anywhere the storm reaches." The video went viral. Millions watched. Hashtags trended. But the watcher did not see. And so the case remains. Unsolved. Unfinished. Emily Carter's body never found. Jonas Hale never captured. Samuel Hale never confirmed. The pit unearthed 7 women, but locals whispered there were more. Dozens more. The well still gapes open in the jungle. The storms still roll across the island each season. And when the winds howl, some swear they hear a scream woven through it, a woman's scream, sharp and desperate, cut short too soon. Emily's scream. And the haunting question that lingers, unanswered, clawing at the back of every mind. Is the watcher still out there, waiting for the next storm? Months later, a tourist posted a shaky video online. Filmed during a storm, it showed the jungle tree line swaying violently. For a split second, lightning split the sky. And in that flash, standing among the trees, was a figure. Tall. Gaunt. Pale eyes glinting. Watching. The video cut to black. And the legend lived on. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more gripping true crime stories told like never before.